Yes, the class yesterday, Intro to Tantra. Oh, it must have been Thursday. Anyway, sometime I forgot. No, last week was fine. Okay. We begin, page 1. We begin by acknowledging the Whadjuk Noongar people, traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples everywhere. Mandala Kamniya Taigami Sangye Churon Soye Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kapsuchi Dagi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Panchi Sangye Dropasho Sangye Churon Soye Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kapsuchi Dagi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Panchi Sangye Dropasho Sangye Churon Soye Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kapsuchi Dagi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Panchi Sangye Dropasho. Cultivating a most profound Mahayana motivation for engaging in listening, reflecting, discussing, contemplating these profound teachings of lo-jong. How very fortunate we are to have met these mind training teachings, given that, at the time they were passed on very much in secret and from one teacher to student. And so that, through the blessings of Geshe Chakawa making these public, that we have these teachings in the world, which are so very necessary at such a time such as this, when there's great degeneration of ethics and having a moral compass in particular, and agitation of the mind increasing, so forth, mental disturbances in the world. So very precious, very dear. Okay, so here we are with continuing on with the 8 verses of thought transformation, Geshe Langwe Tangpa. Just get rid of all this. Okay, so we're up to verse 4. And in this text, it's page 85. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature, I already want to debate that, wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent, negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I found a pleasant, as if I'd found a, precious treasure, found a precious treasure. So wicked in nature. Like this other translation in the mind training, the Great Collection, is when I encounter beings of unpleasant nature. So it hasn't got it as strong as wicked, evil by nature, or we don't see any positive qualities in them. And those are, so separately, those oppressed, here it says overwhelmed, here it says oppressed, by violent or intense negative karma and suffering, negative actions and suffering, negative karma and suffering. And here it says, as though finding a treasure of precious jewels, that's pretty much the same. I will train myself to cherish them. Here it says, I will hold such rare ones dear. I like the idea of training the mind to cherish them, because we don't automatically hold them dear at all. So training our mind, very good. For they are so rarely found, rare ones. They're so rarely found. Oh. I've been pasting myself up with Band-Aids. No, I don't. I'm making things worse. Okay, I'll just ignore that. Rarely found. And so we have, like, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has said, you know, it's so hard for me to do this particular practice because I'm surrounded by people who just agree with me and are very charming to me and very polite and, you know, on their best behavior. So rarely would I find such unpleasant, evil, wicked beings. You know, however, if we think about like His Holiness's ongoing relationship with the Chinese officials, then that indeed has been a more challenging relationship, you could say, and not on behalf of himself, on behalf of all of Tibet, for which he has responsibility. And in the teachings from the Mani retreat, so that was at Chenrezig Institute in 1999, Lama Zopa conducted the 3-month Chenrezig retreat there. How very fortunate Chenrezig was. And that was after, or that same year at least, a 3-month Vajrasattva retreat at Vajrapani in the US. So wow, you could spend half the year in retreat with Rinpoche. Amazing. Anyway, in that there is a dedication which we used to do at Vajrayana Institute. We'd have a Chenrezig, daily Chenrezig practice that some of us would come and do before going off to work, and we'd do this dedication from His Holiness. Because in that one, His Holiness, the bit I can call easily to mind was, may peace arise in the minds of the Chinese officials. So we can think, if anyone who's giving us big trouble, may peace arise in their minds, is a win-win, because clearly their minds are violently overwhelmed by violent negative actions or negative karma. And suffering. So we can use that sort of thinking. I was also thinking this morning of Jesus Christ on the cross, and He said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know what they do. They know not what they're doing." So if I think about that with a Buddhist take, of course I always do, but from a Buddhist perspective, that would be like, they know not the negative karma they're creating, particularly in relation to committing one of the 5, we say, heinous crimes of immediate retribution, which is you could say either drawing blood from a Buddha, if you regard Jesus Christ as a Buddha, but definitely, as His Holiness says, definitely Jesus Christ Bodhisattva, no question. And so here is, so from an Arya being, that you're causing harm, taking the life of an Arya being is one of immediate retribution, or an arhat, they say. So the one who has a direct perceptual realization of emptiness. So already that's big negativity for them in the future, right? So these are just different ways of thinking. So it refers, like these ones, the what do we say, wicked in nature, are those who say have not accumulated sufficient merit in the past to cultivate moral discipline, ethics, and so forth. And they experience, continuously the arisal of afflictions, and don't have any capacity, it would seem, to control that, to hold it, to check out, is this an appropriate situation or not? So they're totally taken over by the afflictive states of mind. Okay. So here's an analogy that's used. It also refers to beings such as the ill-tempered person who, while crossing a mountain pass, was given a plate of stew. But when the food burnt his lips, he tossed the full plate away along with the pan and then bellowed, "You dare burn me." So that, just outrage, rage, and you just like throw everything around, throw pots and pans around, etc. Yeah. And then those oppressed by intense suffering, overwhelmed by intense suffering, you could think about, well, at the time of Geshe Langri Tangpa, and then particularly with Geshe Chökyi with 7-point mind training, those afflicted by leprosy, for example, and even more recently, like here, what was the island they put people on up north? People who had leprosy. Anyway, was it 18th century? What century was it? When the British came and they took them off the mainland and took them off to this island. I can't remember what the island was called, but that sort of thing where you're not acceptable to society, and so you're either removed, or like in India at the time, the Dalits, the outcasts, untouchables, and you didn't go near them. You just let them rot away, basically, suffer of their leprosy. And this is particularly, if we see what Geshe Chökyi did, when he composed the 7-point mind training on the basis of this 8 verses, he invited, it was called the Lepers Dharma, because he particularly taught to the lepers, to the untouchables, to the, in a way, lowest of the low. So we could also say that people who commit heinous crimes are also the lowest of the low. We regard them as that. And then I think about the work we were doing with Liberation Prison Project. We didn't ask people what crime they committed. We asked them, how can we help in terms of the Dharma? Okay. Of course, they weren't causing us a hard time because they were very grateful. So it wasn't really like being confronted by evil. Well, we didn't know. I remember going one time, we never asked them what they did. And then I was in Chökyi prison, and the regular Buddhist chaplain said, "Now, I just want to let you know there's 2 murderers in here." And I wish he hadn't said that, because no, I looked around going, "No, I wonder which 2 are the murderers." Like they got a big label, "I'm the murderer," like they're just guys who stuffed up more than the rest of us do. But anyway, they were there for the Dharma, so what can you say, So basically it's saying we don't treat them as enemies. The sort of thing where we can't look at them, we can't hear their name, we can't go near them, and so forth. But rather, maybe we can't do any of those things, but at least we can have compassion for them. The quote here is, if they were being led away by the king's executioner, like we can feel sorry that, it's led to their own, precipitated their own death. And indeed, in the prison project in the US, we had one guy who was indeed led away to the executioner, by the executioner. But, he said, when he met the Dharma fairly soon after he got into prison. He was in his teens when he got into prison. And what had happened is him and his mates, he said, look, it was a terrible cocktail of drugs, being young, out of it on drugs and being angry, disastrous. And so they'd gone to this house to rob it. And then they realized, oh, there's a lot more stuff here. So they went back. And when they went back, the owners came home and they killed them. So anyway, so he ended up in prison. It's interesting, the karma of this, because I mean, he met the Dharma and he became a very good, devoted student. But he, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, for executions in the States, is it 2 or 3 drugs? There's at least 2.
Have a backup.
No, the drugs that are administered at the time. I think it's 2. Anyway, they have to have a backup. And they're in a state where there was only 1 dose of the drugs because of one particular drug, because the company that had developed that, it was a sedative, had it in overseas. I think it was a German company. They developed it and thinking it was for women giving birth, not for taking lives. And so they withdrew supply. And so they only had 1 dose. But also there was another guy who was slated for execution before him. And, they have appeals up to the last minute and all that sort of thing. So the other guy got an appeal, a stay of execution, and our guy, so to speak, didn't. So you have 21 days in isolation where you're taken out of the death row population and you're separate. And he took with him Vajrasattva practice and Bodhisattva's way of life. And he just practiced. He had a nun who was calling him every day, and they were doing practice together right up to the very last minute. They had, he had a lot of Dharma support. And one time when he was on the phone to the nun, he could hear the birds singing outside, and he said, in the Pure Land, birds sing mantra. So he had become totally focused. I mean, it does make you focused. But he also said, I could die before my death date. So he still had that idea that, death can come any time. But he did have a death date, and that indeed was his death date. But at the time, we were all around the world also doing prayers and meditation, so forth, for his best possible rebirth. And when he was in the death chamber, there was a monk, and they wanted the monk to be able to, he wanted to be able to go in and say the prayers for the time of death. And he wasn't able to. However, just happened to be that they left the door ajar a bit. So he was yelling mantras. So the guy went out chanting Om Mani Padme Hum. And then straight away afterwards, the monk was allowed to come in and do the rest of the prayers. So he had the best conditions, having transformed his mind. Yeah.
It's almost, like he met someone, but because he had that opportunity to create the best environment and the best practice to the self-practice.
Yeah.
He knows what potential.
What is potential? Yeah, exactly. That hopefully.
Those things.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
Not the circumstances of being executed, but knowing that death date and knowing and having a month there to all of those circumstances. Really.
And there was a Geshe who said, none of us will be as prepared for death as he was. He was totally prepared. And that with the media, they interview people who are going to be executed before, and they couldn't make head or tail of what he was saying, because he was going, oh, I want to take my death for the benefit of all sentient beings. And okay. Beautiful. I mean, he did. He turned his life around big time. And I take instances like that of those of evil character, at least, when he was convicted, and see, I'm inspired by the fact that people such as that can turn their lives around, because he could have gone into prison, and even he had the opportunity to meet the Dharma and go, I couldn't care less, you know, and go on with his killing ways or whatever, you know. But he didn't. So then you'd say, well, he had accumulated quite a significant amount of merit to meet with the Dharma, despite the fact of the heavy negative karma that ripened. So we're all a mixed bag in a way. Well, what do we say in nature? We have Buddha nature. We have Buddha nature. Yes.
That means they can't change, right? But if they have...
Well, that would imply they can't change, that it is your nature, whereas I like this better, of unpleasant character. But, yeah. Overcome by delusion. Yeah. Yeah, it does. So, so being aware of that as well. Even if some among them are morally degenerate, we should think, what can I do to help them, until our tears flow freely. First, we should console them with words, and if this proves ineffective, provide for their material needs, render help for their illness. If this is unsuccessful, we should sustain them through our thoughts, you know, at least in our thoughts, wish for their, you know, them to be relieved of their suffering, wishing them to transform. We can do Tonglen and so forth. So if there is, and also to think in relation to suffering, or even, you know, I think any one of us in a way could end up in prison. Now, we're maybe not going to go out killing people, but I know people who like were alcoholics and had accident and killed people, right? Then they went to AA and told their story. But, you know, that sort of thing, though, it turned their lives around, but you don't want that sort of a wake-up call to turn our lives around. So, but also we can have such pervasive illnesses, intense suffering, and, you know, many people do, as we know. So, you know, we can provide support for those who are suffering in that way, you know, see that they have access to medicine or medical help, whatever they need, and not be put off by the fact that they're covered in sores or, you know, they smell awful. Or at one of our happiness conferences, there was a person who, I don't know what was wrong with them, but they really reeked. They were nicely dressed and all of this, and we were like, people around them were complaining and they wanted that person moved, and we never moved him. We never moved him. It's just like, what must he be going through? Because, you know, those conferences weren't cheap. He was there. He had the money. He had, I mean, he must have had some terrible odorous thing going on for him. And
my sister has that at the moment.
Oh, has she?
She's got a fungal infection in her nasal passages.
Oh.
And she's got to go to surgery, but she's got a terrible smell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever's going on in the
terrible. Yeah.
I mean, I can't smell it, but she can.
She can, yeah, because it's a, yeah.
But
yeah. People have oozing wounds. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the most unusual sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You just think doctors, nurses, all of this, what they are dealing with every day. So I will train myself to cherish them, for they are so rarely found. Or, as it says here, as if I'd found a precious treasure, because it is so rare. So we wouldn't chuck it away. We cherish it. We, you know, care for it. I was thinking about, I think it's Lama Atisha, who kept a really obnoxious person in his close entourage. His cook, yeah. There's different stories about the cook, and some stories about the cook, maybe had different cooks, but, you know, about how good a practitioner the cook was. The one who was arrogant and thinking they were a great practitioner, the one who was the meditator and, you know, just thought he was the best because the cook's just the cook and that. And Atisha said, you know, the cook and Trongtompa have their qualities far excel yours. Yeah, the arrogant one, right? So there's difference. Yeah, but I think it was the cook, really obnoxious, and but because that gives the opportunity to practice. Now we may not invite these people home. It is suggested you could, but probably we won't, unless they're relatives, and we'll go, okay. I shouldn't say, but people do say. That's what I'm saying. So, you know, because they're unpleasant in nature, we really, if we want to practice compassion, if we want to develop bodhicitta, we really have to put in much greater effort, isn't it? So that's the idea. Without making deliberate effort, it's rare to encounter such objects. We really have to, of compassion, that allow us to develop on the Mahayana path. And then, as it says, compassion does not arise towards the noble one. So here we are talking about Arya Bodhisattvas. We can think about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We don't exactly say, oh, I better have compassion for the Dalai Lama, what he's going through, right? But, well, we might with his knee op, maybe. But in general, we think, oh, no, Dalai Lama's above all that. So that's not the sort of beings that we need, that, you know, grist for the mill sort of thing, to encounter. So that's the idea of that. And then to think that it's only through cultivating bodhicitta that Buddhas arise in the world, that I myself can become a Buddha. Okay. So different ways to think about it. Now, there's a couple of other points I just wanted to touch on here. Oh no, maybe not. Just let me see. Pretty much the same. We should see them as a special object of love and compassion, cherish them as though we had come across a precious treasure, difficult to find. Okay. So then the next one, when out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. This is really intense. Difficult. You know, so somebody's insulting us, abusing and criticizing us. What is our normal reaction? Anger arises, thought of how dare you, blah, blah, blah. What do you know? You don't know me. I mean, can we go on? So we are likely to immediately get very angry, to argue with them, contradict them, and so forth. And instead, what it's asking us to do is have humility, have tolerance, have patience, and accept what is being said, which is quite interesting. That, you know, I think it's in the introduction to Working with Anger. Thubten Chojan talks about they were on pilgrimage, I think. Anyway, she was going up, hiking up with students, and then one of the students said to her, while I have this opportunity to talk to you, I'll let you know what the students really think of you. And it wasn't flattering. And she talks about that because this was working with anger and the anger mind arising, but then being very appreciative, turning that around. Actually, that's good to hear. You know, I don't know what she said to the guy, but it's working. She talks about working with that anger in her mind and saying, okay, I've got to, you know, got to listen, I've got to be receptive to this, you know, as if I found a precious treasure, because who else had told her what the students think about her? that wasn't flattering, right? So using it, that's just an example. I'll be using it to transform it with humility and with, we talk about forbearance, tolerance, patience. So we have to look at it from different kinds of situations. If we're totally selfishly motivated, we recognize that, oh, I could just feel the ego jumping up when you said that what the students thought of me and blah, 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 blah. We should accept defeat and offer the victory to them. But if the welfare of others is at stake, like if someone's, dangerous out there and it's going to harm others, then of course that's a totally different situation. And we have to fight for the rights of others. If they're being, like, in terms of abusive or insulting, racist or sexist or anyist, whatever, then we don't accept the loss. We don't give the victory to others. We don't go, oh, okay, just go on and be racist and sexist. This is where we need to challenge as one of the bodhisattva, about 46 secondary vows of bodhisattva, where it has a situation where maybe somebody's doing harm or potentially going to do harm, and that we are required to use whatever methods we can to prevent that from happening. The idea is immediately, in a circumstance where we can. There are circumstances where we can't, where you have to use our skillful wisdom. But if we can, to intervene, why? It's like the story of the Buddha on the ship where they had the clairvoyance to see the captain was going to kill all the 500. And instead, the Buddha killed the captain of the ship. No, I'm not suggesting you do this one. It won't stand up in a court of law. And can I just suggest maybe we don't have that clairvoyance? But we might, call the police. We might tell everyone to jump overboard or what, I'm not sure, with different means. Whatever we can to prevent that person creating negative karma by whatever act, and preventing others being harmed. Right? So in situations where we can. But as I said, we have to be skillful. Years ago in my workplace, one of my colleagues came in on the Monday and said, that her brother had died over the weekend, and the way he had died, it was in Sydney in Hyde Park, and he'd seen this couple fighting, and the guy was getting very aggressive, or I'm not sure if there was a knife. There was a knife involved, and so he tried to intervene, and he got killed. So it's like when we do our first aid course, it's check for danger. Like he had all the compassion in the world and all the wish to save the woman and to prevent the guy doing this, but we've got to use our wisdom side as well. Maybe I won't intervene when someone's got a gun or a knife or something else, unless I've got really good self-defense skills and I know I can floor them or disarm them or whatever. So otherwise, bring the police. So we have to be, very skillful. So we've got to check up if it's all about me, which is what these verses are, transforming our own mind about my own self-cherishing, then we accept the victory. Sometimes I find it's not just when people insult or abuse. Sometimes I find it's like someone takes the credit for something you've done. You've just got to give the victory to them and not, excuse me, that was me. Because my ego jumps up and says, look at me, it was my idea. Yeah? Anybody else? It's true, right? Right. Yes.
Where I really struggle with,
yes.
Probably going back to verse number 4.
Yes.
Was with just the current situation in the world. Like,
yeah.
I can't do anything about what's going on in, say, Gaza or
yes.
Ukraine.
Yes.
And then I look at my response to the leaders of some of those countries without naming any.
No, I mean on any particular, yeah.
But then I go, how can I actually see that person as, okay, they're
Well, what we see them in, particularly into number 4, is that they're deluded big time, that they have no idea about the karmic consequences they're creating for themselves, not just for themselves, because if they're the leader sending other people off to fight, for all of those people, you know, it's like they're like, let's say, you know, if you get somebody else to do your killing for you, you get the karma of killing doubled up because you've asked someone else to do it, right? So imagine all the, I don't know how many people they send off to war, and you think, wow, you have no idea the karma that you are creating for
That's
yourself.
the first place you're trying to get to, rather than your own.
Yes, because
opinions
well,
and
what
judgments.
yeah, our opinions and judgments are a worldly, conventional thing, and we're quite justified in having that. If there's anything that we can do by peaceful means, I mean, that's what His Holiness has said in relation to. Oh, Lama Zopa, I remember telling us when we were all like, what are we going to do? You know, China, Tibet, do whatever you can by peaceful means. Peaceful means. So raising awareness or whatever, protesting, peaceful means is fine. So yes, we can do on that side. And then we've got to think, because it is that situation of being beneficial for others. So it's on behalf of others. It's not, I could say, is it directly affecting myself, apart from petrol prices going up or whatever? But no, we could say. So it's not because you hurt me, it's because I can't bear to see what you're doing in the world. And not only that, it's a collective karma of everybody, because everyone hears on the news. There's other countries involved who supplies the arms and who does this and who does that and everything. It's such a complex situation. And so one way is to think like, I find it useful to think like that, of you have no idea of the negative karma that you're creating for yourself. And they're not creating the negative karma for others, but they're doubling up, tripling up that for the heaviness of that suffering for themselves in future lives. And, you know, like His Holiness said, may peace arise in the minds of those leaders, because a peaceful mind doesn't send people off to fight. A peaceful mind isn't the aggressor and, you know, want to take over the world or whatever it seems that they want to do. And realize what, as the Buddha said, so deluded about reality. I mean, that's huge delusion about how things are. So then, you know, you'd say, well, as a social being in the world today who has a strong sense of social justice, what can I do? What can I do here? You know, when the Ukraine war, towards the very beginning, got this touching email from a Ukrainian woman who said, I'm Buddhist and, you know, I'm finding it difficult in this situation. I'm isolated and so forth. And the world doesn't know. And, you know, and she wanted prayers. And so it was easy to write back and say, the whole world is praying for you. You know that you're not alone. I mean, now that, you know, down the track, you know you're not alone. But at the beginning, you don't know that. And so, you know, we do, you know, I guess we can do whatever prayers, practices for the, like that, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, like, gave us a set of prayers to do for the pacification of war, and particularly named a certain world leader. And, you know, with that idea of peace arising in their mind and so forth. I can't remember the exact words. And so that happens, you know, it was happening every Saturday. It's resumed again. Actually, now the prayers have been replaced for the ones for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. But His Holiness Dalai Lama comes out very quickly. Lama Zopa did previously. I'm sure other lamas do as well. One of the actually prison guards released, and he's actually in a mental health facility, and he's an artist. Plus, he has a website that it just like got the prayers from all these different lamas and put it on this one website. It just like do. So there are things that we can do, and then send it to everybody he knew. Send the link to here you go. Here's the one-stop shop. So there are things that we can do. I know you're talking about the things we can do. You're talking more about how to, the fact of these beings in the world. And also keep in mind, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche said years ago when, before the election where Trump was elected, and we were at a retreat in the US just before that, and the first question comes up, what do you think of Trump? And Lama Zopa said, the US has the leaders it has the karma for. The world has the leaders it has the karma for. So we've also got to reflect of, this is a reflection of the state of the world. This is a world of great degeneration. We know that. Social media, cyberbullying, just at every level, it would seem that there's such nastiness in the world. It's horrific, really. And so that thing, like when I started going into the prison system, even speaking kindly has a profound effect. Okay. Now, here we say, well, I'm sort of like the Dalai Lama. I'm surrounded by people who agree with me. So what can I do? We can put things on social media that are raising awareness or whatever, So it's not saying to just ignore situations at all. It's not that at all. As it says with the Bodhisattvas, we are obliged to do whatever we can, right? By peaceful means. We can't, as you said, we're not in a situation to stop. I mean, world leaders don't seem to be in a situation to stop the world leaders, I mean, I sometimes think, how far do we have to go before the UN does something effective? Or maybe they can't do something effective. I really don't know.
I think if they could have done something,
they would have done it, right? Yeah. They'd just be ignored anyway. I'm not sure, with the state of the world. We don't have the worldly protectors at that level. At the micro level, yes, but not at the macro level, it would seem.
I think because at the moment, the individual, whether that be individual country or individual person, needs are considered greater than. So while we have, not to get too political about it, if you've got world leaders that are not looking at it from the perspective of the whole or even country leaders, let's work together for the country. And I think that's for us as well, when we look at all of these situations as a me thing against me instead of looking at the whole, that's when you get poorer outcomes.
Yeah. And it also, the question comes in, we, as it says, we have to take strong action when we see something wrong happening. But how much whose judgment do we just, can we trust? Can we trust our own decisions about that, our own perception of the world? I think in certain situations, which we're alluding to and not really naming, we can say that, yes, we can. And there's a collective agreement. It's not entirely collective, but there's a, World Convention accepts, it would seem to accept that war is a no-no, but do we, as a world, accept that?
Maybe that's the other level too, right? We're doing that with levels. It's like, here we are back at what is noble truth number one.
Yeah.
Just to be alive and be here. It's suffering.
Yes.
And
But
This is the world that we're living in.
yeah,
Thank you. It's not to deny the individual things that are going on, but it's like, I think it's hard to take that in, like on a really,
it is quite overwhelming, isn't
you
it?
know, like that kind of level.
Yeah.
Because in some ways we're all still a nice community actually here,
Yeah,
because they're over there.
yeah,
And we're over here.
yeah.
Um,
So this is where we look at friend, enemy, stranger. So it's almost like the stranger category is hard because I don't have a direct connection, like they're over there. But nonetheless, I guess the media does a very good job of bringing them into our home. And it's an atrocity, isn't it? After atrocity, you know, it's a bit despairing when you think, look at what humans can do to humans and animals and the environment and everything else in a destructive way. But we could use that to say that therefore I'm not going to go down that path and I'm going to go down another path because humans can also do that. You know, we're also great creators, great saviors. You know, look at all the scientific and medical discoveries just in the last century or so. So, yeah, it's
actually the other nun that was here.
Sewon, Venerable Sewon.
She was really interested in that. She really talked about aspiring to be a self.
Yes.
So it's like, I think that's something else. Even I got really inspired.
Yeah.
Something else that you could hold alongside that.
Yeah.
That thing of feeling like you can't. I mean, I'm only thinking of this now.
Yeah.
Feeling that you can't do anything on the one hand.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, still open to the idea that you would embrace this as a bodhisattva.
As a bodhisattva, yeah. If you think,
take the whole
well, but just look at people who are acting. I mean, I wouldn't know if they're bodhisattvas or not, but who do take it on, like, you know, Greta Thunberg at a young age.
Yeah.
And look what power of one person, phenomenal power, right? And what created that phenomenal power? An absence of fear. Really, if you look at her, this incredible courage, which is what is being a bodhisattva, having incredible courage to repeatedly, you know, face up, not being fearful of you're a world leader or you're this or you're that or you're against me or whatever. Oh, it's not fair. People are against me. Just determination. That's a bodhisattva attitude because it's not for her own well-being. It's for the world. So, you know, I know the Dalai Lama. I think she's a brilliant example of bodhisattva in action in the world today. Yes.
I was thinking of the various Australians of the year that we've had.
Yes, all the Australians of the year.
Because they're very brave. I mean, sometimes they're medical specialists, sometimes like survivors of rape or domestic violence or whatever.
Courageous.
And they go in and they do all this, you know, raising awareness about whatever their issue is.
Yeah, it's taking your own adversity and using that to benefit others, not just to get your own retribution, your own compensation, but saying, okay, I'm not alone in this. Many others are in this situation. And it's increasing if you look at something like domestic violence. So taking it on, yeah. You can say it's part of their healing, but it's also part of the whole, it's bringing it into a public discourse in a way that can't be ignored. Like Grace Tame, Rosie Batty, yes.
Sometimes I think what I'm doing is not, it's not enough. And then I remind myself that all kind of small actions,
Yes.
even the tiniest ones, are so powerful. We had a situation recently where we live, there's always altercations, there's like social housing, and people are always having difficulties. When we moved in there, it was very frightening, and we were quite afraid a lot of the time, like there's all the stuff every night, shouting and screaming.
Yes.
Until we met one of our neighbors, and she's a lovely old lady. You know, we met her one time. She was in a difficult situation. We were there. She had a fall because somebody came to her house, and she was very aggravated because of that. So the next time they was shouting and screaming, like, okay, we know this person. We can live with ourselves if we if that's her, you know, by herself. So we went out together, and it was a bit dangerous, you know, because you have to check what the situation is.
Exactly.
But now we've done that a couple of times. We know the people there. There can be shouting and screaming. We don't have to fear anymore. I think that was the most transformative.
Yes. Not having the fear.
Okay. We know these people. And we know they're suffering. We have seen their suffering.
Yeah.
You know, that fear doesn't come into it so much.
Yeah.
And maybe it's only a tiny thing, and maybe it hasn't even
That is huge.
a difference to anybody else, but it's made such a big difference to us.
It makes such a big difference to you because, as you said, there's no fear there anymore. So your capacity has grown. And this is what is training to become a bodhisattva, or training on a bodhisattva path, is enhancing your own capacity. And that's how a thing that I find helpful for, okay, well, training on the bodhisattva path, I want to be able to, if I want to do it from a self-cherishing point of view, it's like I want to be able to enhance my capacities to more and more tolerate adversity, to more and more benefit others.
Especially with teaching.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, excellent. No, that's massive. That's massive. And even in other situations, you might be fearful. In that situation, it's like, I know the experience of going beyond fear in that situation.
Yeah.
And that we can, you know, this is the courage that, what do they say? Courage is fear, that's said at prayers or something. That, you know, that you've actually assessed the situation. You haven't just sort of gone in blindly. Because going in blindly is being full of fear. Might be compassion, but it's not. And so, as you said, going in together as well. Yeah, so it is, you know, whatever action that we can take skillfully. As you were talking, I thought of this may not work, but why not? It could. In PNG, like there was a women's, this was years ago when I was working in aid agency, and there was this women's law committee, right? So they were raising the campaign against domestic violence and so forth, because the guys would say it's custom. In other words, it's tradition. And the women say, no, there's nothing in our traditions, our cultures that says domestic violence is okay, right? So they confronted that collectively. But then one strategy in the villages was that if a woman was being attacked, the neighbor would start bashing on her pan, and then the next neighbor, and then the next, like, you know, and then they'd all come, grab the guy, strip him naked, and hang him from a tree. Now,
I'm liking it.
Oh, really? What was that? No. That do no harm, just a huge embarrassment. No, they didn't string him up to kill him. I never thought of that because I had the image of, oh, he's just in a tree. You know? No, they didn't. Exposed, yeah. So, you know, collective action, you know, is powerful. Can be powerful. I mean, a lot of times it feels like you're absolutely getting nowhere. But the thing is to keep doing whatever it is that we feel passionate about raising, the alarm about. And if we're able to, as it is in here, on a sort of one-on-one basis, skillfully intervene in a situation that, you can turn that person's life around. I've experienced that again and again in visiting people in prison, guys in prison, because it's mainly guys, but the women too, and you'd get this card or, once they were released and you'd get a card or a message saying, oh, you helped me so much, and you thought, well, we just gave you a book, or we just, you never feel like what you did was a lot. So it's not insignificant. It's a small act, but it has profound effect.
And that's the other thing I think too, is like, we are not in the Ukraine.
No, we're not
Life
doing
is giving us our own
correct
challenges. I'm not saying that we should be ignoring it, or if we do stuff, we don't do it, but we're not short of our own challenges.
We're not short of, we're challenges all the time.
So, like, I agree with you. I mean, I've started to be, or attempted to be, put myself into more challenging situations. Good. From listening to you.
Yeah. Excellent. Go for it.
Rejoicing for you as well.
Bodhisattva in training. Absolutely. That's what will do it.
So it's all working.
It's work. Yeah. Excellent. It is. It works. Yeah. So another way to look at this is it says, like Langri Tampa, we should accept the defeat upon ourselves. So there's a way of looking at it going, well, if this person's criticized me, insulted me, abused me, at this point I'm talking about at a verbal level, because I think domestic violence, these sorts of abuse, it's, you're not just going to be a doormat and stick there and say, oh, just bring it on. You remove yourself from the situation if you can, as much as you can, or help somebody else facilitate that. But if it's on this level of, judgment, criticism and so forth, Langri Tampa. So the sense of, rather than saying, this is not fair, I'm innocent, I'm not to blame, I didn't do a thing, I didn't even open my mouth, all of these things, just see that is the self-cherishing and the ego arising, and it's, as it made more explicit through Geshe Chökyi's 7-point mind training, to put the blame onto the one. So putting the blame, if you want to put the blame somewhere, don't put it out there, put it onto the self-cherishing ego that doesn't want to hear those awful words, or doesn't, that one that's the one that's offended. Right? So to use it as part of our practice to overcome our own self-cherishing. And then Langri Tampa, it said that, so this is a quote, whenever misfortunes befell someone else, he would say, I too am part of him, or, in other words, we're connected. I'm a fellow human being. I'm another suffering sentient being, however we want to look at it. So
the interesting thing about taking that thing on yourself,
yes,
is that gives you a point of power.
Yes.
Because you're not saying, oh, that politician out there should be doing something.
Yeah.
Or your neighbour on the street. If you take it all on yourself, this is what I found, then you're left with the problem.
Yeah, you've got to do something. Yeah. Don't keep pointing out there going, oh, what's happening? What is happening in here? Why am I what's happening in here? What's happening in here that I think I can't deal with that situation? or that fear arises, or that, you know, whatever.
And it is quite interesting to sit with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting to sit with that.
And you don't want it, but it's not a natural thing to do. Well, not yet.
So the idea of training ourselves to seeing, oh, this is, you know, as I said earlier, a precious jewel, you know, this person, because they've given me this opportunity to train. And you know, they're being incredibly kind. Language Tangpa said, and in relation to giving you the opportunity to purify even that same affliction in your own mind, you know, what is the one in me who wants to attack other people or wants to, you know, have power over them, who's abusive, who's insulting, and so forth, and purify that, and use it to, you know, practice our purification, accumulate merit. Language Tangpa says, it is more effective to recognize those who baselessly slander you as a source of kindness than it is to offer butterfly delicacies. So that's kabse to each monk of the Pen region. I don't know where the Pen region is in Tibet, but basically, you know, we get much more out of that one person. Yeah.
Sorry, I think I drifted a bit.
Yeah, and they're a greater source of kindness than if you were to offer kabse, so this, what do they say, butterfly delicacy. Sorry, I have an aversion for kabse just because I don't have an aversion for it, I just can't eat it. So it's a deep fried flour, these curls, you've probably seen them.
Nice to eat.
Yeah, something nice to eat, delicacies. Fried delights, okay. So then offering that to, you know, all the monks in the big monastery or monks, nuns, whatever, all the Sangha, etc. And quoting from the Bodhisattva's way of life, since it is in dependence upon this person's malign intention that forbearance arises, he's the cause of forbearance. So he's worthy of veneration, just as the Dharma is. Okay, that might be tricky. Very aspirational. So it takes, you know, it says his malign intention that from the dependence on that forbearance arises. So it takes great strength, great fortitude, courage we've been talking about. We have to grit the teeth to deal with this one and so forth, but it makes us stronger. And then, of course, again, quoting from Shantideva, that this development of forbearance, we usually say patience, like it said here, tolerance, forbearance, patience, is even more powerful than ethical discipline, our, you know, sort of constraining body, speech, and mind. And Shantideva said, there's no negativity like anger and no fortitude like forbearance, no strength like forbearance. So this is the forbearance or the patience in being unperturbed by harm. So when we practice the perfections and we practice the perfection of patience, one of those is patience in relation to the harm giver, which is, it's a strength. It's not giving in. It's not just being a doormat and saying, oh yes, I give the victory to you, go and fight all your wars and, you know, invade the world or whatever. So it's not being like that, but not letting it take over our mind. And then the other aspects of patience, just to think about, you know, we talk about the three aspects of patience. this is the one that, of course, we generally focus on. And in Shadi David's Way of Life, there's, you know, the chapter on patience has it's every permutation of every single situation where somebody can press your buttons, right? Everything that you could deal with. But then we have to look at our patience, turn it upon ourselves. If I'm looking at cultivating patience, of what about my patience with suffering, like other beings who are suffering with illnesses or so forth, with my afflictions. So when we get angry, the best, as Shani David said, the best thing is to turn your anger on your anger, right? Not out there, but to turn anger on itself. If you're going to get angry with something, get angry with the anger, your own anger.
Got to catch that early enough.
You got to catch it early enough, yeah.
That's the trick.
Otherwise, you might escalate and just be totally off the radar. And the other one is being patient with our own Dharma practice, the teachings and so forth. The patience at it, you know, realizing that's a long haul, that it's over time. It's just not to be complacent and not do a thing, but just realize it takes a long time. I think you mentioned that, you know, it's happening, but it takes time. You know, we think, oh yeah, I'll go back and try that today. And if it doesn't work today, I give up. Rather than, well, I'll just try again. I'll just try again. I'll get up and do it again and again and again. And that it is, and to see that, you know, what the Buddha taught is how things are, is reality. And so that more and more we're able to act in sync with that. Yeah, we might experience things get better, but say, well, just like Chen Vesig, look at the world, still full of suffering, you know, tears coming, you know, what else can I do, right? Jesus Christ, nailed on the cross to take on the suffering of the world. Did it work? No. Was it great compassion? Yes. So, yeah. Anything else on that one? So number 6, when someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. So this is about voluntarily accepting suffering. You know, we've given help to someone, we expect them to be grateful, we had great hope, they betray us, they slander us. Contemplate them as a teacher with a sense of gratitude. You know, for me, Ling Rinpoche really nailed this one when he said, so this is like when the kids grow up.
It's like when
the kids grow up.
Oh, the kids grow up, yeah.
And they start getting, you know, the ratty teenagers, or, you know, I've heard people talk about the kids, like, what do I do? I have to get them to leave home or whatever, because they're just so awful. And he said, that's what this is. It's about, it's like you apply this in that situation where, you know, I had great hopes for them. I've given them, you know, their education and their clothing and their food and their shelter and and now they've totally turned against me, right? So it's that sort of a scenario. But see them as, it says, our precious guru, as, you know, and again, in this other version, it says, I'll train myself to view them as my sublime teacher. Like, I don't automatically do that. Yeah.
On this one, when I read this one,
yes,
the first thing that really came to mind for me was, this is an opportunity to remind me of my seeing them as a friend, not an enemy or stranger.
Yes.
When you see someone as a friend, someone who, why do you see them as a friend? Because they're kind to you, they do good things. It's about
yes, yeah, make them your friend. Whereas
as soon as they don't do what makes me happy, you know, like if children grow up and don't make me happy, it's about me, and they're the opportunity to remind me of
Exactly.
this is, I'm just not close towards any of them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not
Or
seeing
they're not living up to my expectations of them, how I expect them to behave, because, you know, because I've done all this for you.
So there's that
Yeah.
expectation,
Yeah.
attachment to reciprocity,
Yes.
which we shouldn't have.
No, we shouldn't have. Yeah.
Give of
Yeah.
for
So
the sake of others, and that's where it comes. Well, what we consider love, well, love is to wish others to be happy. So we're not.
regardless of me,
Yeah.
may you be happy regardless of me.
Yeah.
You know, please go and be happy somewhere else. No. Okay. John Tomper said, in Kham, I went to visit the teacher Sharappa, a friend close to my heart. I went knowing he had not invited me, and he took offense at this and sent me away. He ordered others to remove all my belongings, and he locked me in a dark room. That's when it became clear to me whether I had trained my mind in loving kindness and compassion, and whether the lines, may the sufferings, their sufferings ripen upon me, may all my happiness ripen upon them, had remained a lie to me. So I don't suggest that your friends lock you up in a dark room. And then, so we can also look at this in relation to previously, I have caused harms such as these to others. So it's right that today such harm comes to me. I've caused terrible harm in the past. So looking at it, this is a ripening of my own past karma that I'm experiencing this here and now, is another way to think of it.
It's kind of an interesting one, isn't it? Because then you are alone in your dark room and you're alone.
Yeah.
You know, so what do you rely on?
Well, in your dark room, you're only going to rely on yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's like, what supports, what have you, it's that whole thing of what have you generated? What do you base yourself on?
Yeah. Well, I guess this is where.
Yourself as well.
Yeah.
Given that.
So this is where it says, I regard this person as my holy guru, as my teacher. So what am I learning here? If this is a teaching, I mean, that's what John Tomper did. What is this showing me about myself? You know, and my expectations and my, like, he was a friend. He should have, you know, he should have, blah, 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 blah. But he wasn't impressed that I turned up without, he was a teacher, right? That I just turned up. And he did it deliberately as a teaching, made it really extreme. Chuck out all his belongings, you know, lock him up in a dark room.
Must be having a really bad day.
Well, you could think that. They must be having a really bad day, because guess what? It's not about me. It's not all about me. Because what you're looking at is what impact that's having on me, not what am I doing.
Steve at Coupons, he said this thing I mentioned before that really kind of stuck with me. When somebody is really horrible to you, and you've done nothing to them, or you even have done good things to them, and they're still horrible to you.
Yeah.
And you don't know why.
Yeah.
You really have to think about, what did I do to them in a past life?
Yes.
Because there must be a reason that it's wrong.
Yeah.
And you could try thinking that, oh, whatever I did to you is that you're so horrible to me. Oh, I'm really sorry, because that must have been terrible.
What I did to you previously. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was just so, I'm not saying I can do it, but
yeah,
it was just very, very powerful.
It's very helpful, yeah, because it points to the fact that karma is individual. So is your karma with that person? It's not some random person who suddenly, you know, caused that condition to arise. It's that person I have that karma with, right? And yeah, it's payback time. So I must have done something. And we can also not try and work out what that is, because we turn our heads inside out trying to work, what did I possibly do? Yeah, forget it. But where was I going with that? We've all done everything. All of us have done everything. We've had endless, beginningless lifetimes. We've been everything. We've done everything. So in a way, how dare I criticize them, because I've been there, done that. I've done that. And, that harm that I'm experiencing now, and like John Tomper, why am I experiencing harm? He was unhappy that I turned up unannounced. Why did my ego expect to be entertained and given these butterfly delicious delicacies? I was expecting that. Didn't happen. Yeah. Why do the kids have their own mind? Why do I, people say, oh, they're a failure. Yeah. Rather than whatever you want to do, may you be happy. May it make you happy. That's the unconditional love that says, may you be happy, regardless of what I think you should be doing in your life, with your life. Yeah. Said we should think we ourselves are to blame for whatever befalls us. So this is the past karma ripening, and maintain a warm heart. We do that, we'll be happy. We don't. And because we don't transfer the blame to the other, then they too remain happy. This is due to my own karma.
So you're creating an ending in a way, aren't you?
A completion of that karma. A completion of that karma has ripened. It's complete, done, finished, right?
You're not adding to it again now.
Because it depends how many kids you have. I just think my problem.
I was thinking more being in the dark room.
Yeah. I'll take the dark room. I don't want the kids.
Interesting with the children too, though, to think about. Like they're the strongest karmic bond, aren't they?
Children, yeah, strongest karmic bond. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that explains everything.
Well, and then if you also look at the bigger picture of that karmic bond, we've been friends, enemies, strangers with that same individual, lifetime to lifetime. So, or you could say even in this lifetime, it was all going very nicely when they were young, because they hadn't, they just depended on me for everything, and I just told them and then they believed me. But, as soon as they start asserting their own rights and their own minds, then things got a bit on the enemy side. And then if I chuck them out, and now you're strangers. Yes.
They're not your biological children. They're still a karmic bond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is, because what karma, like my sister, spent 10 years trying to have a biological child. And in the end, she fostered and adopted. So the two, and particularly the two she adopted, I would say particularly the one, because one who she adopted, they're now estranged. Anyway, don't need to go in the story. But her daughter, they're a mother-daughter. They're not of the same genes, but they're DNA. But they're definitely mother-daughter. They're very close, right? Or they have that karmic connection. So it's not the only way that we have karmic connection through, through giving birth and being, sort of a part of the same DNA, sharing DNA. It's not the only way. Very, very close. If you think about historically, the guru-disciple relationship, that is so close. It's like it's the one mind stream, right? That's operating, passing down, and with, for example, Geshe Dawa who was our first Tibetan Lama Vajrayana Institute. And, you know, when Geshe Yeshigawa, who's still alive, Geshe Dawa's passed, was telling the story of the connection between Lab Rinpoche, who's also in Sydney, Geshe Dawa and Geshe Yeshigawa, you realise the three of them at the same age. Just lifetime after lifetime, changed places. You know, it's fantastic to see. That's close, right? So you could also think, I mean, a lot of people do say, you know, that their relationship with their gurus, the closest relationship in their life, and we're encouraged to cultivate that. You know, to really, they know your mind. You know? So yeah, there's a lot of very close relationships. But when we look at that friend, enemy, stranger thing, we know in this lifetime that those categories are changeable just in one lifetime, let alone lifetime to lifetime. So what happens is, you know, we're at this point where we get highly offended. It's because we're taking everything as very concrete, and what is now is permanent. Like there's no, this is it. This is, you know, it's fixed, and it's not. It's a lot of ways that we can unpack this one. Okay, there's another quotation as well that says, "Those who falsely accuse me, others who cause me harm, likewise those who insult me, may they all share in enlightenment." If that works for you. I thought that one's harder, actually. Even if others return kindness with harm, I will practice responding with great compassion. The most excellent beings of this world answer injury with benevolence. So this is another way. How would His Holiness the Dalai Lama deal with this situation? So I've used the examples of like him saying, "May peace arise in the minds of the Chinese leaders," and so forth. So that how would these great beings respond in that situation? So therefore, how can I respond that's in accordance with that? So different ways. So if we see, you know, regarding them as our gurus, our spiritual teachers, who are the embodiment of great kindness, and thinking, okay, this again gives me the opportunity to purify this negative karma. So that's ripening right now. And then from Atisha's Song of Blissfulness, whether someone is friend or foe, these objects that give rise to afflictions, he, she, they, who see them as spiritual teachers will be joyful. Okay. That's it. I think that's it. We might leave it there because rather than the next verse is the Tonglen verse. So I want to spend a bit more time on that next time. Okay, so we can leave it there. Any other questions, comments, contributions? Yes.
There's some behavior in my marriage that really troubles me. Like I always criticize my husband. Why don't know? You know, because he doesn't do the dishes properly.
Of course.
It's very annoying.
Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff.
Well, I feel that in myself, that's not something I like. And I thought, well, maybe I should think of my husband as a bodhisattva.
Yes, maybe you should think of your husband as a great bodhisattva. Yes.
Probably wouldn't be like,
yes. Excellent. Yeah. You can. You can do that.
You do the dishes so well yourself.
It doesn't
And then
It
he'll
doesn't
be
disturb
complaining to
me if
you.
I'm not
What
doing
is this? Look at these dirty dishes.
It doesn't disturb me if I'm not doing the dishes well enough. Only disturbs me that he's not doing the dishes well.
And that's a telling point in itself, isn't it?
That's not me.
Expectation, you know. I preferred my friend who just refuses to let you wash the dishes because you'll never do it good enough for him.
So I totally
He doesn't use detergent either.
been criticizing my husband. I realise how unproductive it is.
Yeah.
And I still do it.
Yes.
In my head, if I'm not doing it out there.
Yeah.
The bit I want to get rid of now is the bit in here.
You want to get, well, yeah, but it's good to start restraint of not letting it come out. At least it's in my head, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to, yeah.
I really don't like it.
Yeah.
I still do it.
Yeah, you just say, great bodhisattva, you're being a great teacher. Aha, this is my self-cherishing that wants you to, you know. Yeah. And then you can, I don't know,
Report back next week. And see.
change it.
I think that's a very creative idea.
Yeah.
And I often think, well, I'm going to try this experiment this week, you know.
No, it's good. Set yourself a goal. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
See how this works.
Yes, report back. We want to have a, we'll have a progress. Oh,
Okay. We can still do it.
we can still do it. Have a progress report. But this is the thing, this is part of the training. We set ourselves, I'm not going to, like I had someone I worked with, and she was bad-mouthing me to the boss. I had tenure. She didn't. But anyway, the boss was her friend, but her boss previously was my friend. I mean, she was still my friend. The boss was my friend. Anyway, this one, and I used to have to practice every morning before I'd come to work, be driving to work, just practice being kind. All you have to do is say hello, smile. That's all you have to do. And then you can go to your office. That's all you have to do. And you just sort of keep practicing like that. Of course, at the end of the day, the boss realized that she was being ratty and I was okay. I knew I was okay anyway. I had the freedom of knowing I'm okay. No matter what she says, I'm okay. But it is that thing of practice, practice, practice. And unless we set ourselves the goal to deal with that one person in a, you know, kind, see them as your precious guru, etc. way, then no, we're probably not going to do it.
And academia is a wonderful teacher, isn't it?
Academia is a wonderful teacher. It is. It certainly is. Everyone's got their silos. All right. Report back next week. We'll dedicate. Page 8, first 2 verses. Gavadi no doda lama hasange ndrugyone trova chikyan mahalokam deyi sala Ngo pasho jancho sencho rinpoche makye panam ge kuchi ye panyam pa me payam gongne gondu pelwashu. Next page. Pray for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and practical Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta, children of the victorious one, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And long life prayer for Tenzin Oso Rinpoche, Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddhist teachings. Foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme, we make this prayer of supplication. Lama, please, please live long. So then I've just got an announcement.